I suspected my girlfriend wasn't being honest, so I deliberately came home from work early and happened to overhear her saying, "Hey guys, I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this. But here we are. Buckle up. This is going to get crazy." So, here's my story. I'm 25, and I've been dating Kayla, who's 23. For 3 years. We met at this dive bar downtown through mutual friends. She caught my eye immediately. She was beautiful, funny, and had this random knowledge of action movies that blew me away. She was wearing a black top and jeans that fit her perfectly, slamming tequila shots like it was nothing. Our first date was at this sketchy taco joint that ended up giving both of us food poisoning. Most girls would have been annoyed, but Kayla found it hilarious. We spent the next day recovering on my couch, binge-watching Breaking Bad and ordering boring pizza. Later that night, she kicked my ass at Call of Duty. Yeah, I was hooked. After about 8 months, we decided to move in together. It was a tiny, overpriced apartment downtown, but the location was perfect. I had a pretty intense job as a software developer at a startup. I was working insane hours, sometimes 60, sometimes 80 a week. There was a lot of pressure from the investors. Always wanting more features. Always pushing for faster results. It was the whole tech bro lifestyle: Patagonia vests, endless meetings, ping pong tables nobody used, and way too much caffeine. But the money was solid. 6 figures plus stock options that might actually be worth something if we didn't implode. Kayla was supposedly finishing her psychology degree while working part-time as a waitress at this fancy restaurant. But the thing was, she'd been 1 semester away from graduating for what felt like 2 years. Every semester there was some new excuse. My professor doesn't like me. I need to retake statistics. I messed up my credits. She talked a lot about grad school and becoming a therapist, but somehow, she never actually finished the basics of her bachelor's degree. I ended up covering about 70% of our expenses: rent, utilities, groceries, car payments, her phone bill. Her contributions were limited to her own personal spending and occasionally picking up dinner. At first, I didn't mind too much. I thought we were building something together, and I was sure that once she graduated and started her career, things would even out. She always promised she'd support me if I wanted to start my own business or work on an indie game idea. The first 2 years of our relationship were great. We had this ridiculous tradition of Taco Tuesday, where we tried to outdo each other with crazier taco creations. My personal peak was a flaming hot Cheetos taco shell with Korean BBQ filling. We made it for her birthday, and it was amazing. She once made this crazy taco with blue corn tortillas, mango salsa, and cricket protein. It sounds weird, but somehow, it was both disgusting and amazing. We'd go on weekend hiking trips, and she'd complain the whole way up the mountain. But when we got to the summit, she'd be so happy, and it'd make it all worth it. I remember one trip to Eagle Peak where it started raining halfway up, but instead of turning back, we just went for it. By the time we made it to the top, we were covered in mud, but we were laughing our asses off at how ridiculous we looked. But after about 3 years, things started to change. The fun, adventurous girl I had fallen for started disappearing. Kayla was always on her phone and too tired for anything I suggested. Looking back, the red flags were pretty obvious, but I was either too busy or too clueless to see them. It started small. She'd get defensive when I asked simple questions like, "How was your day?" or "Who was texting you?" Her phone was suddenly always face down, and she'd jump every time it buzzed. Classic signs of someone hiding something. But at the time, I didn't connect the dots. Then, she started these late study sessions at the library. She'd come home smelling like perfume and mints. And when I'd ask about her studies, she'd give me these vague answers. I didn't understand her major. But even I knew something wasn't adding up. There were other weird things too. She'd get these random calls and step outside to take them. She'd claim it was her mom or her friends. But she spoke in this hushed voice I'd never heard before. Sometimes she'd come home with new clothes, jewelry, or makeup. And when I'd ask where they came from, her excuse would always be, "I've had this forever." Or it was on sale. It started to feel like I didn't really know her anymore. There was one guy at my office, Jensen from marketing, who she seemed oddly interested in. Whenever I mentioned work, she'd ask if he was there or what he was up to. I thought maybe she was just being friendly, taking an interest in my work life. But it felt strange. She even suggested we invite him and his wife out for dinner, which seemed random. But I didn't think much of it at the time. Then came the company holiday party last December. Kayla insisted on coming, even though she usually hated work functions. I remember her spending half the night chatting with Jensen while I talked shop with the higher-ups. At the time, I thought it was cool that she was making an effort with my colleagues. Now, I see how naive I was. By the time our anniversary came around, we were more like roommates who occasionally had awkward sex. Kayla was barely around, always studying or working extra shifts. I kept telling myself it was just a phase, that maybe we needed a vacation to reconnect. But things weren't getting better. And I knew deep down that something was off. There was this new designer at my office, Julia, who was not only gorgeous, but also incredibly smart and cool to talk to. Kayla met her once and immediately hated her. She accused me of having a thing for Julia, which wasn't true. But Kayla's reaction was intense. She'd make these snide comments about Julia, saying she was trying too hard or looked desperate. By February, I was seriously considering whether this relationship was worth saving. I even looked up the breaking lease penalties, wondering if I should just cut my losses and move out. But then Kayla would have these moments where she seemed like her old self again, affectionate, fun, present, and I'd hang on, thinking things might get better. It was manipulation, though, and I didn't recognize it at the time. I had planned to have a serious "where's this going?" talk with her after my big project deadline. I thought we'd either commit to fixing things or call it quits, but I didn't have to wait for that conversation. Last Tuesday changed everything. Last Tuesday started out like any other day. I had been grinding on this massive project for weeks, building this payment processing system that the client needed ASAP. My boss came by around 2 p.m. to tell me that the client canceled our afternoon demo because of some emergency on their end. For once, I had a rare free afternoon, something that never happens. I decided to surprise Kayla with dinner from this Thai place she was obsessed with. The place is ridiculously expensive, like $18 for pad Thai, but I thought it'd be a nice gesture since we hadn't spent much time together recently. I didn't tell her I was coming home early. Wanted it to be a surprise. I grabbed the food and drove home with this good feeling in my chest. Like maybe, just maybe, we could talk for once and have a real conversation. Maybe we'd even watch something together. I parked outside our building and headed up the stairs to our third-floor apartment. As I stepped inside, I could hear Kayla's voice coming from the bedroom. She was on the phone, laughing about something. I stopped just outside the door, holding the takeout bags. What I overheard froze me in my tracks. "No. He has absolutely no idea," she said, sounding smug and amused. "He thinks I'm at the library studying when I'm with you." My stomach dropped. The floor beneath me suddenly felt like it was made of ice. I stood there, motionless, the food growing cold in my hands. "Yeah. We can meet again tomorrow," she continued. "He's got some big project deadline, so he'll be at the office late. I'll just tell him I have a study group or something. Works every time." I could barely breathe. My mind raced, but I couldn't process what was happening. I felt like I was in some kind of horrible dream. She laughed again, and then I heard the name. "Jensen, you're so much better than him in every way. There's no competition." Jensen, the guy from my office. The one who always had great ideas in meetings but never actually did any work. The same guy who was married to Sarah from accounting. It all clicked in that moment. The late nights. The lack of interest in me. The constant excuses. It wasn't study sessions or research methods. She had been sleeping with my coworker the entire time, and I hadn't seen it. "Sometimes I have to fake being tired, just so I don't have to sleep with him anymore," she added casually. That's when something inside me snapped. Not in an angry, raging way, but in a way that felt oddly calm, like I'd just seen everything clearly for the first time. I'd been looking at one of those magic eye pictures for 3 years, and suddenly, the real image popped out. My girlfriend, the woman I'd trusted and thought was building a life with me, was a liar and a cheater. I could have barged in right then and there. I could have confronted her, made a big scene, thrown the food in her face, yelled, whatever. But in that moment, I decided I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. I wasn't going to let her paint me as the angry, jealous boyfriend. So, instead of walking into that room and letting her see the hurt and rage I was feeling, I turned around. I walked quietly back down the hall, down the stairs, and out to my car. I drove off before she could spot me from the window. I ended up parking in some random mall parking lot. Just sitting there, trying to process what had just happened. 3 years of my life gone. And for what? So she could cheat on me with a married coworker, laugh about it behind my back, and call me clueless. The humiliation was next level. I pulled out my phone and called my buddy Brian. He was the one guy I could count on to keep things quiet. He didn't ask questions, he just gave me his address and told me to come over. When I got to Brian's place, I sat on his couch and told him everything. He didn't say much, just nodded along and grabbed 2 energy drinks from the fridge. I could tell he was trying to make sure I was okay. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept going over everything I'd just learned. But I woke up the next morning with a strange kind of calm. I checked my phone. 3 texts from Kayla. Hey, where are you? Thought you were working late. Are you coming home tonight? Hello. Answer me, please. I texted her back, trying to stay composed. Got stuck at work, crashing at the office. Don't wait up. While she thought I was grinding away at my desk, I was executing what Brian and I started calling the ghost protocol. Step 1. Secure the finances. I logged into our joint account. Well, technically, it was my account that I had added her to and transferred every penny to a new account at a different bank. Kayla had a habit of borrowing from our shared funds for her shopping sprees. And there wasn't much left anyway, maybe $2.30 so. But it wasn't about the money. It was about securing my independence and not letting her have access to my life anymore. Next, I called my landlord and told him I needed to remove myself from the lease ASAP due to a family emergency. The guy was surprisingly understanding and agreed to let me go if I forfeited my half of the security deposit. $1.10 down the drain. But it was worth every penny to be legally disconnected from both that apartment and Kayla. Kayla was at her waitressing shift. So Brian and I had a 3-hour window to grab my stuff. We didn't take everything, just my computer. Some clothes, important documents, and a few sentimental items. I left all the furniture. Most of it was cheap IKEA stuff anyway. Before I left her a note on the kitchen counter. It was simple, to the point. I heard your phone call with Jensen. We're done. Don't contact me again. I also left a copy of the lease modification showing that I was no longer legally responsible for the rent. That $1.80 a month apartment was now entirely her problem on her waitress salary, with a degree she'd never finish. Step 2 of the plan was trickier: work. I couldn't just quit my job over this. I'd worked too hard to get where I was. But I also couldn't stay in the same office and pretend everything was fine. So, I called in sick for the rest of the day, claiming some nasty stomach bug. It gave me time to figure out what to do next, while Kayla's world was about to implode. As I settled into my new routine, Kayla's world slowly started to fall apart. And I wasn't about to step in and save her. Not anymore. I had blocked her number, email, and all her social media accounts. I knew that wouldn't stop her from trying to reach me, though. She was relentless. My phone was constantly blowing up with calls from unknown numbers and messages from her friends, asking where I was. I didn't respond to any of it. The one time I slipped and read a message. It was the usual manipulative garbage: please talk to me. There's been a huge misunderstanding. Whatever you think you heard, it isn't true. We need to talk about this like adults. It was laughable. She was trying to act like the victim after all of this. The best part about ghosting someone like Kayla is the complete power shift. For 3 years, she'd been the one pulling the strings, lying to my face, keeping me on a string, manipulating me. Now, it was my turn. I was the one in control. And she was scrambling, desperate for information, for any kind of contact. Day 2 of the ghost protocol started with Kayla's voicemails sobbing about how worried she was, how she just wanted to know I was safe. I was stone cold. I didn't answer any of her messages. By day 3, those desperate pleas turned into angry, frustrated rants about how childish and immature I was for not talking to her. Meanwhile, I was setting up my new life. I found a short-term rental closer to work. It wasn't fancy, just a small studio apartment with basic furniture, but it was mine. And it was peaceful. It felt like a clean slate. The best part: no more Kayla. I wasn't sharing my space with someone who had made me feel like a fool for so long. I started getting my life together. I hit the gym more regularly, swapped my usual takeout meals for home-cooked food, and even took up rock climbing at a nearby gym. The weight I had gained over the past few years from the stress of our relationship started to melt off, and I felt healthier than I had in ages. It felt good. Actually, I had visible abs for the first time since college. Who knew getting cheated on would lead to a fitness glow up? Meanwhile, Kayla's life was starting to unravel. She had no idea where I was. And with every day that passed, I felt more in control. I knew that her panic would eventually reach a boiling point. She wasn't the type to let things go easily, especially when she had no idea where I was or what I was doing. It didn't take long before the first pieces of the puzzle fell into place. I knew Jensen was in for a ride. I started to research his situation at work. He and I were in different departments, but I could see Sarah, his wife, in the cafeteria sometimes, bringing him lunch. I could only imagine how oblivious she was to what her husband was doing behind her back. It made me feel bad for her, but it also gave me an idea. If Kayla and Jensen wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too. But my version of dirty wasn't petty, it was pure brilliance. I knew exactly how to set the wheels in motion, and I did it all from Brian's couch. While Kayla was busy blowing up my phone, I ordered a massive bouquet of red roses from a fancy flower website. The Eternal Love package, 2 dozen long-stem roses in a premium vase, along with a handwritten card. The total came to $95, and I had it scheduled for delivery to Jensen's house the following evening at 6 p.m. I was counting on the chaos that would follow. For the card, I channeled my inner romance novelist, Jensen. I miss you so much it hurts. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to feel you again. Love always, Kayla. It was beautiful in its simplicity. And it would be the perfect bomb to drop. I knew Jensen lived in a nice suburban neighborhood. A good 20-minute drive from downtown. White picket fences. The whole idealized American dream. Perfect for a marriage to implode. I felt a sense of satisfaction as I hit the place order button. It was out of my hands now. That night, I went back to work. Kayla kept sending me frantic messages, showing up at my office. But security wasn't letting her in. I smiled to myself as I walked through the office lobby, knowing that the bomb I had just planted would detonate at any moment. Sure enough, around 4 p.m. Jensen got a text that made his face go pale. He checked the time on his watch. I was watching all of this unfold from the corner of my eye as I made my coffee in the break room. He immediately stepped outside, probably to call Kayla and warn her about the impending disaster. I didn't care. I wasn't there to confront them, or to even let them know that I knew everything. I was there to watch the show. I left work at 5:30, and sure enough, by 6:12 p.m. Jensen was sprinting out of the building, tie loose, face flushed with panic. He jumped into his car like it was on fire, peeling out of the parking lot. It was too late. The roses were already on their way to his house. The next morning was one of the best I had in a long time. I arrived at work early, grabbed a spot in the common area, and set up my laptop, pretending to work while I waited for the fireworks to go off. Our office was open plan, and the accounting department was on the same floor, so I had front row seats to the drama that was about to unfold. Around 10 a.m. Sarah, Jensen's wife, walked into the office first. She looked like she'd been crying, but she held her head high respect. I was impressed. She didn't let the world know she was falling apart, but it was clear from the red in her eyes that something had hit her hard. About 20 minutes later, Jensen walked in. He looked like a wreck. Same clothes as yesterday. No tie. Messy hair, complete deer in headlights expression. The whispers started immediately. Everyone in the office could see that something major had gone down between the so-called golden boy Jensen and his wife. It didn't take long for the rumors to spread, and people were already talking about how he'd been caught cheating. I just sat there sipping my coffee, enjoying every moment of the chaos I had set into motion, with a single flower delivery. At around 10:30 a.m. Sarah marched across the office and into Jensen's office, holding a stack of papers. Even from a distance, I could tell what they were: divorce papers. She didn't knock, she just barged right in and slammed the door behind her. I could hear their shouting from where I was sitting, but it was mostly muffled. It didn't matter, though everyone on the floor could hear the key phrases: disgusting liar. How could you? Those words echoed through the thin walls, and people pretended to work while straining to listen to every word. By lunchtime, the entire office knew about the affair. Jensen had been caught cheating with some waitress, and no one was letting him forget it. HR called him in for a meeting that lasted over an hour. It turned out our company had a pretty strict policy about creating a hostile work environment, and sleeping with a coworker's girlfriend definitely qualified as creating one. The best part: I didn't have to say a single word. I didn't have to confront either of them. Sometimes, the simplest plans are the most effective. Later that evening, I treated myself to a steak dinner at a fancy place downtown that Kayla had always wanted to try. I took a window seat, ordered the most expensive item on the menu, and enjoyed every bite. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. A week after the flower bomb, Kayla finally tracked me down at Brian's place. I have no idea how she found out where I was. Maybe she harassed one of our mutual friends until they cracked. She showed up on a Saturday morning while I was still in my boxers, eating cereal, and watching reruns of The Office. Brian thought we were being raided when he saw her pounding on the door. He peeked through the peephole and his eyes went wide. Dude, it's Kayla. And she looks freaking unhinged. I sighed and put down my cereal. I knew this confrontation was coming sooner or later. You can't ghost someone forever in a city this size. Let her in, I said. Brian opened the door, and Kayla burst in like a hurricane. She looked awful, mascara streaked down her face, her hair unwashed, wearing what looked like pajama pants with a dressy top. She was a walking mental breakdown. The second she saw me sitting there, casually eating my cinnamon toast crunch, she lost it completely. She started screaming about how I'd ruined her life, how Jensen had dumped her, and how she was now 3 months behind on rent because I'd abandoned her. I didn't say a word. I just kept eating my cereal. She grabbed a throw pillow off Brian's couch and hurled it at my head. She missed by a mile, and I didn't even flinch. "Are you even listening to me?" she shrieked. "Do you have any idea what I've been through?" I swallowed my cereal, set the bowl down, and finally spoke. "You mean like how I felt hearing you laugh about me on the phone, explaining how you manipulated me and lied to my face? That kind of been through stuff." That wasn't," she stammered. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said, leaning forward. "You cheated with my coworker, mocked me behind my back, and now you're mad because there are consequences. Seems pretty straightforward to me." That's when the tears started. Not the angry ones from before, but the calculated, manipulative kind I had seen from her countless times. The kind that would have worked on me in the past, but not anymore. The old me would have comforted her. I would have considered giving her another chance. Maybe believed her excuses. The new me just watched her with detached fascination. Like I was watching a documentary about predatory behavior. Kayla wiped her eyes and sniffled. "The flowers were a nice touch," she said, her voice shaky. "Jensen's wife threw all his stuff on the lawn. She's filing for divorce." I didn't respond. I didn't confirm or deny anything. I just shrugged. "He blames me for everything," she continued. "Says I ruined his life. He blocked me everywhere." She was practically sobbing by this point, but I didn't feel anything. I shook my head, pretending to feel sorry for her. "Sounds rough. Maybe try the library. I hear they have free internet and heating." Brian snorted from the kitchen, pretending not to eavesdrop. Kayla's tears dried up instantly. She shot me a look of pure hatred and desperation. "You think this is funny? You destroyed my life over one mistake." "One mistake," I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "That's an interesting way to describe a months-long affair where you explicitly discussed manipulating me." She had no answer for that. She just stared at me, her face twisted in anger and confusion. "What do you want, Kayla?" I asked. "Finally. You tracked me down. You got your confrontation. What's the endgame here?" She wiped her eyes again, suddenly looking small and defeated. "I need money for rent. Just until I figure something out. I'll pay you back." There it was. Not an apology. Not even genuine remorse. Just the same old manipulation. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. The audacity was just too much. "No," I said simply. "Not my problem anymore. But where am I supposed to go?" She practically wailed. "My parents live across the country." "Sounds like a great time for a road trip," I replied, picking up my cereal bowl again. She tried to argue, but Brian wasn't having it. He practically herded her toward the exit while she kept looking back at me like she couldn't believe this was happening. Just before Brian closed the door behind her, Kayla shouted, "You'll regret this, both of you." We heard her storming down the hallway, still yelling threats and insults. Brian turned to me with raised eyebrows. "Well, that was intense." I nodded, finishing my now soggy cereal. "Yep, but necessary." "So, it's been 3 months since the Kayla meltdown at Brian's place. And honestly, life has done a complete 180. After spending so long walking on eggshells in my own relationship, being single felt like I was taking off a 50-pound backpack I didn't even realize I was carrying. First order of business, finding my own place. I snagged a sweet 1-bedroom downtown, not far from work. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine. No one is drinking my coffee or leaving makeup all over the bathroom counter anymore. I bought new furniture, actual quality stuff. Not the cheap IKEA crap. My new couch doesn't feel like cardboard, and my apartment is my sanctuary. Jensen was officially fired from the company. HR had a field day with him. Turns out Kayla wasn't the only inappropriate relationship he'd been having at the office. He was a walking HR violation. His wife, Sarah, cleaned him out in the divorce proceedings. I guess you really shouldn't cheat on someone who works in accounting. They know exactly where all the money is hidden. As for me, I've been hitting the gym regularly. I started meal prepping, instead of living off protein shakes and microwave burritos. I even picked up rock climbing at this indoor gym near my apartment. I've lost the relationship 15 I gained with Kayla, and I've actually got visible abs for the first time since college. Who knew getting cheated on would be so good for my fitness journey? The best part, watching everything from a distance. I saw Jensen at a bar downtown a few weeks ago, drinking alone, looking like a wreck. I ordered him a drink from across the room, Petty, I know. But it was so satisfying to see his face when the bartender pointed me out. I just raised my glass, smiled, and went back to my conversation. No need to say a word. Sometimes, silence is more powerful than any insult. As for Kayla, she got evicted from our old apartment, as expected. According to mutual friends, she had to move in with one of her waitress colleagues into some tiny studio, where she sleeps on the couch. She also dropped out of college. Shocking. I know. Turns out that 1 semester away was actually 6 semesters away. She's been trying to reinvent herself on social media, posting all these fake deep quotes about growth, and finding herself. Meanwhile, she's telling anyone who will listen that I was emotionally abusive, and that's why we broke up. Classic. It's always easier to play the victim than to take responsibility for nuking your own life. The real cherry on top, though, Julia, the designer at work, the gorgeous, smart, and kind woman. Kayla was always insanely jealous of. Turns out, she had her eye on me for months. About 6 weeks after the Kayla explosion, Julia caught me in the break room and asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime. I was still in that post-breakup mindset, thinking everyone knew my business. So I was surprised when she seemed genuinely unaware of the whole Kayla Jensen saga. We grabbed coffee, then dinner a few days later, and then drinks the following weekend. Julia is everything. Kayla wasn't gorgeous, but also smart, funny, and genuinely kind. We've been dating for about 2 months now, taking it slow because we both have trust issues from past relationships. She's teaching me to cook something besides protein shakes and microwave burritos. Last weekend, Julia and I ran into Kayla at a coffee shop near the office. She was with some new guy, clearly trying to make me jealous. She kept laughing too loudly, touching his arm, looking over to see if I was watching. It was pathetic. I didn't care. Julia and I grabbed our coffees and left without acknowledging them. Outside, Julia turned to me and said, "So that's the famous Kayla, huh?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Yeah," I said. Trading up is the best revenge. The whole experience taught me a lot of lessons. First, trust your gut. Those little red flags I ignored were right in front of me the whole time. Second, how someone handles adversity shows you who they really are. Kayla's response to consequences was to blame everyone else and try to manipulate her way out of it. That tells you everything you need to know about her character. But most importantly, I learned that I'm stronger than I thought. A year ago, if you'd told me my girlfriend was cheating with my coworker, I would have predicted a complete breakdown. Instead, I handled it with a cold calculation that surprised even me. So if you're reading this and going through something similar, being cheated on, lied to, manipulated, cut them off. Focus on yourself and watch as karma does its thing. Living well really is the best revenge. Though I've got to say, sending those flowers was a pretty close second.